Hello, welcome to another episode of Fully Charged. My name's Robert Llewellyn. This particular episode is about the Kia Optima PHEV, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Now, very often when I get to review a brand new car that's just coming onto the market, I get it for like an hour. You get a sort of vague feeling for it. This car I've had for a couple of days now, and I've been pootling about in it quite a lot. So it's a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, and I'm going to do a special test because when I got in it the first time, it was absolutely full of petrol, and then I plugged it in, charged it absolutely full, and then I've driven 72 miles in it to see what the realistic fuel consumption is, because that's the thing you cannot judge in like an hour's drive when you're not in control of the charging or the petrol or anything. So what I'm going to do at the end of driving it around now is put petrol in it, see how much it is, and then I can work out exactly what its MPG is, because I know how many M's it's done, how many miles, and I will also convert that to kilometers per litre. But this is Kia's first plug-in hybrid. So I've already driven the Kia Soul EV, which I really liked, which was really the first EV that came out that was commercially available that had a well over 100 miles range. I mean, that genuinely had 120, 130 mile range. So the Optima is another one in the Kia's range of cars, you know, because you can get a diesel version of this and a petrol version. This is the plug-in hybrid version. This is their first plug-in hybrid. They've used a lot of the technology that they developed and then refined in the Kia Soul. So it's the same motor, not the same battery, but the same battery management system, same charging system. So this has a 2-litre petrol engine and an electric motor. But what's interesting about that, and this is slightly different, and you might be able to hear it now because it's in EV mode at the moment. When I pull away now, it's got, what it did then was change gear. So when you're driving in electric mode, the electric motor is going through the same gearbox the petrol motor does, so it goes through gears. You hear it going through gears, and there's a little bit of a delay. It goes like that. Weirdest thing I've ever known. I don't think I've ever experienced an electric car going through what is clearly a really sophisticated gearbox, because the initial oomph from standing start is it's almost violent, but that's because it's in first gear. It then changes gear very quickly. I can't find a setting on it at the moment which tells me what gear I'm in. Not that you need to know it, but I can't really tell. So the basic stats for this car are that it's a plug-in hybrid. It has a 2-litre petrol engine. It has a 9.8 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion polymer battery that drives an electric motor. So those are the two choices you have, is pure EV and hybrid. That's really the only two settings, and it will switch between those two settings on its own, or you can override it and choose which one you want to have. I haven't found a kind of save battery setting or a charge battery setting, and it's not impossible that I haven't quite discovered those yet, but there doesn't appear to be any particular way of doing that, which some hybrid electric cars have, i.e. so that you can use the petrol to get to a city and then use the battery and the electric motor when you're in a city. But the 9.8 kilowatt hours, it gives you about 30 miles range, and that's what they say, and I think that's absolutely right. I drove slightly more than that when the battery was fully charged earlier today. I think I did about 33 miles, but it's not impossible that you would get 30 miles easily on a charge. This has an ordinary 5 kilowatt input, so you could have that in your house. You could charge it. Now, it would take about 3 hours to fully charge it. So basically overnight, if you've got somewhere to park this car, overnight, you can plug it in and the battery will always be full in the morning, and it will certainly give you then a very impressive overall fuel economy. So I can actually have a look at what the fuel economy is. So at the moment, this is averaging 82.3 miles to the gallon. Well, that I've just driven 60 miles on a motorway before I got here. So that is pretty impressive, because clearly that's what these cars are about. These cars are about maximising the range of the vehicle using the minimum amount of fossil fuels. I mean, what's the point of doing them? But from the point of view of the driving experience, it's kind of pointless me even saying about it. It's made by a big car manufacturer who make loads of cars. This is a already well-developed model that exists with petrol and diesel options, so it's very refined. In-car stuff is really very, very good. The sat-nav is fantastic. It's really easy to use. It's really clear. When you get in one of these cars, which I now do quite regularly, you're constantly trying to find the different settings, and it was very easy to do in this car. So I know what my average fuel consumption is, how far I've gone. I can look at the energy flow. I can look at the driving style, which I'm quite proud of. So I have 65% of my driving style has been economical. I've had a normal driving style for 32%, and I've had an aggressive driving style for 3%. And I like to think of that's a fairly good assessment of my own personality. I'm 65% economical. I'm about 32% normal, and I'm about 3% aggressive. You can have the speed up there, you can have the distance that you've travelled. So I've travelled now 75.2 miles, and we're about to go across the Bristol suspension bridge built by Isambard Kingdom Brunel. But I'm just touching the brake now, as you would going down this hill in any vehicle, but what I'm getting is a full wallop. So it's what you're doing, what the brake pedal does is the same as these handles do. It's increasing the amount of regen to a point where you come to a complete stop like that. So I'm sure that there is some pressure on the brake pads, but it will be minimal. Most of that reduction in momentum will be coming from the regen. This is one of these cars that wasn't really high on my list to drive. It was just like, oh, it's another plug-in hybrid. Someone else has done a plug-in hybrid. What's interesting is these are becoming much more sophisticated. This vehicle is a big step change. The first plug-in hybrid I ever drove was the Prius, which had about 10 to 12 miles range when you plugged it in. And you just thought, it's kind of no point. There's no point doing that. And what it did do was, because the Toyota hybrid system is very sophisticated, is you could get similar average MPG out of the vehicle. Now, if I was doing a 20-mile commute every day, say 5 times a week, and I could charge the car at home and work, then you would do 200 miles plus to the gallon, because you wouldn't use any petrol to do that. It so depends on how you're using the vehicle. 82.8 miles to the gallon in comparison with a vehicle from 20 years ago is phenomenal. It's staggering. It's unbelievable. This is amazing. I have driven over this before, but it is the most remarkable bridge. It goes over a very deep gorge in Bristol. And this was built such a long time ago for a big industrial edifice like this. Very narrow road, by comparison with today's suspension bridges. Of course, it's tragically petite. But at the time, this was revolutionary. It's over 150 years old. I don't even know, maybe more than that. It's old. They're claiming 176 miles to the gallon and 37 grams of CO2 per kilometre. I'm not achieving that at the moment. I just haven't had it long enough. You need to have the car for longer to really assess that kind of thing. Plug it in every night, you use it on average, you would get over 100 miles to the gallon, which is great, and I think that's perfectly doable. And there would be particular journeys like I've done today where it would go below that, but there'd be a lot of journeys where you go way above that. You would get 150, 200 miles a gallon, because if you're not using the petrol engine, and certainly some people who've driven Chevy Volt in America and the Ampera here are getting like over 200 miles to the gallon average use over a few months, because they're just commuting back and forth to work or going to the shops or whatever it is, school runs, all that sort of stuff. It is very hard to maintain excitement and enthusiasm over anything that has a petrol engine in it. And this is by far one of the better plug-in hybrids I've driven. But it's still got a petrol engine. It's got a big petrol engine. It's got a 2-litre petrol engine. And so, okay, well, my average consumption has now gone up to 83. So if you drive it carefully, I think you'd get 100 miles to the gallon. That makes it worth the effort. And it's all about is it worth it? Because this car is more expensive than its mere diesel and petrol siblings. I'm just trying to tell you all those things. Front-wheel drive, 2-litre engine, 6-speed automatic gearbox, which is quite an interesting thing. So I'm just going to floor it now. I love that thing when you're in a hybrid, that's so typical. So I'm going to put my foot down hard now. What you would call that is not instantaneous. There's a nice gap between putting your foot down and actually starting to move. When I look down the price lists of all the Kia cars, this car is still considerably more expensive than if you bought the diesel Optima. It's about, this is about 4,000, is it? £3,000 or £4,000 more, but then you get the government grant, which, so it's going to be, what you'd actually end up paying for this is comparable to what you'd pay for a diesel, and boy is it going to be cheaper to run. Here's the important thing. This particular electric motor, which is the same one that's in the Kia Soul, has more Newton meters of torque than the 2-litre petrol engine. So when you have it, the battery fully charged, and you drive it just as an electric car, it actually has more peppy performance than the petrol engine has. Because all I'm hoping is that people who are kind of considering the very notion that possibly driving a diesel car isn't the best thing they can do in the world, but they're scared of getting an electric car because they think it's going to run out all of a sudden and leave them stranded. But they'll soon learn that actually the electric stuff's really good. This is quite weird for me because I don't do this very often. God, there's a queue. What a pain. How boring. Imagine having to go through this every day. Couldn't bear it. I'm going to buy some petrol, which I've got to remind myself how to do it. I haven't bought petrol now for a couple of years, so I can't, this is exciting and new for me. I've got to know which side the filler fuel thing is. It's on that side. Okay, you're going to go in there. But this is weird. Now, I'm just going to say this now because that's all you hear about is, how you have to wait for hours to fill it, and it takes ages to fill an electric car, and it's really boring. I would never do this. I'm sitting in a queue to buy petrol, and there's people buying petrol, and I've got to wait. I've got to wait. How tedious is this? And I've got to come here. I can't do this at home. I've got to come here and do it here, which is really incredibly tedious and annoying. What a stupid, dated, pointless waste of my time. Yeah, the funny thing is, of course, I mean, it's easy to be cynical and silly about it, but actually you have to stand and wait while you put petrol in. You've got to stand and wait there. I mean, I never do that with an electric car. I just plug it in and go away. But you've got to stand in the cold and the winter. It's horrible. And people say, it takes a minute. No, it doesn't. I've been sitting behind this car that's been filling for the last 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, she's finished now. Okay, but please select how you pay. Oh my Lord, I don't have to go. This has all changed since I bought petrol. Oh, I see. I can't spend more than £99 on fuel. Oh, you've got to undo that. The smell is incredible. Put that in there. Right, okay, let's see what it does. Well, that's a gallon. This is not looking good. £6.91. 6.3 litres. The thing is, this is a really crap test because it probably wasn't really full when I got it. Well, as plug-in hybrids go, this is definitely one of the best I've ever been in. It's got, absolutely usable electric range. 30 miles seems to be perfectly plausible. I'm going to put, when we finish testing it, I'll put up the final figures to what I estimate is the actual MPG. But I mean, it's somewhere between 80 and 100 miles per gallon is completely plausible. Really comfy, really well made. It's a great step forward from either a pure petrol or diesel. So, from that point of view, I can't fault it. Really, and quite a few people have looked at it and go, oh, that's nice looking. I don't know, I've got no aesthetic sense. Anyway, that's all for this episode of Fully Charged. Please make sure you watch more of them. There's loads of old ones you can look at, and also there's loads of new ones coming out all the time. Have a look at the Patreon link that's below this video. Just have a look, just see what you think, see how you feel emotionally about maybe supporting Fully Charged and enabling us to continue making these videos. And also, please subscribe if you haven't already. I know most of you have, and it's all wonderful, and I really appreciate it. And that's really all. So obviously, as always, if you have been, thank you for watching.